Blackhawks hockey is officially back. I'll get into everything to know before the puck drops tonight against the Florida Panthers, as well as some bold predictions for the 25-26 season.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and check me out on X at Jack Bushman 2, but make sure to follow my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Go and show some love to Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram as well, as I've got that account up and running again over the last couple of months, posting some real cool reels and stories and whatnot. So make sure to go and check out Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram if you haven't done so already. But segment one here today, we finally made it, Blackhawks fans. Game day has arrived as the Hawks will play in the opening game of the 25-26 season as part of the NHL's triple header here this evening. Don't forget, it is a 4 p.m. Central Time scheduled puck drop. However, because it is yet another banner-raising ceremony that the Blackhawks are witnessing on opening night. Seems like that happens basically every other year for whatever reason for the Blackhawks. Because of the banner-raising ceremony, because of the player introductions, I'm sure the game will start a little bit later than 4 p.m. CT, but still obviously not an ideal puck drop time for the middle of the week here in Chicago. But we fight through it. Still excited that Blackhawks hockey is back. The opening game of the Jeff Blashill era after, some grueling training camp practices and obviously 6 exhibition contests. The games are going to start counting for real, Blackhawks fans. I'm excited to see what this team has in store, even if it is a pretty pesky matchup for them on opening night here against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. But before I dive into the projected forward lines, defensive pairings, and everything else of note, before the puck drops tonight in Sunrise, do want to first mention right off the jump, I always find it funny how things work out this way. It seems to always happen, but right after I dropped the episode yesterday discussing Oliver Moore, Nolan Allen, and Ryan Greene being final cuts from the Blackhawks opening night roster, well, the Hawks actually made a couple of roster moves ahead of their practice on Monday down in Florida. Is Ryan Greene, the full-on Abe Simpson gif of him walking out of the room and then walking right back in a second later. He was assigned to Rockford on Sunday, but less than 24 hours later, recalled by the Blackhawks and joining them for practice on Monday, while unfortunately Landon Slaggert has landed on injured reserve due to a lower body injury, which he suffered in the preseason finale on Saturday against the St. Louis Blues. Skated just one shift in the third period and kind of got banged into along the boards. Wasn't able to return for that game and now is sadly set to miss the start of the 25-26 season. However, on the bright side, Jeff Blashill, when speaking with the media yesterday, said that it's not expected to be a long-term IR stint for Slaggert, but he is not taking part in this road trip with the Blackhawks for their opening 2 games of the 25-26 campaign. So that means Ryan Greene back up with the NHL club for the time being. And also, Blackhawks fans, another little bit of tough news is defenseman Alex Vlasic, who the Hawks were hopeful that he was going to be able to play in the season opening game tonight. He's not expected to be part of the lineup. Well, still healing from that cut that he suffered on his leg from a skate blade a little over a week ago. So with those latest roster updates and news that we got from Jeff Blashill and a couple of announcements from the team, here is what we're looking at for the Blackhawks' projected lineup tonight against the Florida Panthers in the regular season opener. Obviously, kicking things off in the forward lines, the top line, Connor Bedard, along with Ryan Donato and Andre Burakovsky as the wings. I do like how Jeff Blashill has, for the most part, stuck with the same forward lines and defensive combinations all throughout training camp and the preseason. I think, Luke Richardson as well as Jeremy Colleton, even before him, kind of got caught up in mixing up the combinations a little bit too frequently, especially when, the games obviously they matter, but the results don't in the preseason. So I like that Blashill is giving these guys some time to establish chemistry with one another for multiple weeks. They got some preseason games in together, and now we're going to see how they fare with one another when the action actually starts to count. And of course, it's Andre Burakovsky's season debut for the Blackhawks, and he's getting one heck of an opportunity right off the jump for a player that's, kind of struggled the last 3 years after being a really key piece in helping the Colorado Avalanche win the Stanley Cup in 2022. Top line spot for Burakovsky right off the jump. Honestly, I didn't think he fared all that well in the preseason, but, it is preseason hockey. It's definitely not the end all be all. So hopefully he'll be able to get off to a little bit of a faster start here this evening and play with some pace along with Connor Bedard on that top line. I do think Bedard and Donato overall showed some good chemistry with one another. Quiet final 2 preseason games for Bedard. Wasn't on the stat sheet in either of his final 2 appearances, but I do think altogether, as I've mentioned a couple of different times on the show, looks faster, looks stronger, and I really do believe, as I'll get into in segment 3, is poised to have his best season yet up in the NHL. Then as the second line, no surprise either, Teuvo Teravainen, Frank Nazar, and Tyler Bertuzzi been together all throughout camp and the preseason, and I think this was the Blackhawks. Of their 4 forward lines, this was the one that had the strongest preseason with one another. I think Frank Nazar was probably the Blackhawks' best player during the preseason. Tyler Bertuzzi had a couple of good performances as well. And I really do think Tyler Bertuzzi and Frank Nazar getting off to a fast start in the preseason and just altogether, for Bertuzzi especially, looking more prepared to get off to a strong start to the regular season. I think it's going to be a good year for both Bertuzzi and Frank Nazar on that Blackhawks second line. The third line for Chicago tonight with Landon Slaggert out of the lineup, taking his left wing spot along with Jason Dickinson and Ilya Mikheyev on the checking line is Colton Dach, which I do think if you're not going to have Slaggert in the lineup, he does make the most sense up there. Hopefully we'll see that physicality that he provides, as well as, an increase in the offensive game that we saw in the preseason as well here against the Panthers. And then rounding things out on the fourth line for the Blackhawks, Nick Foligno, Sam Lafferty on the wings. Well, Ryan Greene is serving as the Blackhawks fourth line center. And it's funny because when I was predicting my final roster for the Blackhawks for the start of the season, I had Ryan Greene in the fourth line center spot. Now, obviously, it's only happening because Landon Slaggert is currently out with an injury. However, if Ryan Greene thrives in that opportunity, I will say it's still most likely that he's going to be reassigned to Rockford when Slaggert returns, but who knows? I thought Ryan Greene had a pretty darn good preseason, fared really well at the faceoff dot, and the Blackhawks could use a true center iceman down there on the fourth line to help them win some draws in the defensive zone. If Ryan Greene can do that in his, first couple of games before Landon Slaggert returns, really curious to see if the Blackhawks consider keeping him up in the NHL for the time being. And then that leaves, of course, the only extra forward left on the roster right now, Lukas Reichel on the outside looking in, expected to be healthy scratch here tonight against the Panthers. Defensively for the Blackhawks, could be a little bit of trouble considering that Alex Vlasic is not in the lineup. Looks like it's going to be Matt Grzelcyk on the top pairing along with Sam Rinzel, which I think that duo can do some good things together in the offensive zone, but in their own end, I'm a little concerned about how they're going to fare against a physical Florida Panthers squad. Then on the second defensive pairing, Wyatt Kaiser and Artem Levshinov, who have been with one another dating back to the end of last season. And then Ethan Del Mastro will be jumping into the lineup because Alex Vlasic is out as well, playing on the third defensive pairing along with Connor Murphy, while Louis Crevier is expected to be serving as the seventh defenseman here tonight for Chicago. In goal for the Blackhawks, of course, Spencer Knight kicking off his first season as a true number one goaltender, and he'll be playing against his former team since the first time that he was traded to Chicago as part of the Seth Jones deal. Speaking of Seth Jones, he's also playing against his former team for the first time since he's gotten traded. Obviously went on to join the Panthers and was a big part of them winning a second consecutive Stanley Cup championship. I believe he had 4 goals and 5 assists for 9 points in the postseason for Florida while averaging over 23 minutes a game. So I think that's a trade that, we're only, 6.5 months past it, but I think it's a deal that really is going to wind up working out nicely for both sides. But really curious to see what is going to happen with the Florida Panthers here this season, because they're going to be without both Captain Alexander Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk for a serious bit of time here to open up the 25-26 campaign. Obviously, Barkov, he's expected to miss 7 to 9 months, probably the entirety of the season, while Matthew Tkachuk is battling with a lower body injury that he was, playing through at the Four Nations faceoff all the way back in February, and he's not expected to return until at least mid to late December. So tough sledding for the Panthers right out of the gate without two real franchise icons and key pieces of their success and the heartbeat of the team the last couple of years. That's gonna make it very difficult in their chances of three-peating and winning the Stanley Cup once again. Blackhawks have an opportunity here tonight against a not top-tier Panthers squad. Obviously down two of their most important players, but don't think the Panthers are going to be, one of the worst teams in the NHL or anything this season. But a reminder, the Blackhawks do hold the Panthers' unprotected 2026 first-round pick. And without Barkov and without Tkachuk for a serious bit of time, who knows? Maybe the Panthers could fall into, maybe the 19th or 20th pick, similar to what the Blackhawks had when they selected Sasha Boisvert a couple of years ago. We'll see what winds up transpiring for the Florida Panthers here this season. Obviously, they're still going to be the favorite on home ice tonight here against a very young and inexperienced Blackhawks squad. But you still got to go and play the game, Blackhawks fans. And I couldn't be more excited that Blackhawks hockey is officially back. Go and drop below in the comment section, Hawks fans, what you think the final score is going to be tonight between the Blackhawks and Panthers at Amerant Bank Arena down in Sunrise. There is everything to know before the puck drops again at 4 p.m. Central Time. Game will be televised on ESPN. Coming up in just a moment here, I'll dive into Sam Rinzel's 25-26 season preview. But first, I do got to talk to you all about one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. The NFL season is now here and in full swing, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Because right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 to use in bonus bets all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's super quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. With player props, same-game parlays, and more ways than ever to get in on the action, are you ready to play? All you got to do is download the FanDuel app now or visit FanDuel.com today in order to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and win $300 in bonus bets when it cashes. Real quick, just a reminder to please go and smash that like button and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube if you haven't done so already and are enjoying what you're watching here today. Segment 2. Recently on the show, I went through Connor Bedard and Frank Nazar's season previews, and I definitely wanted to get one out there for young rising defenseman Sam Rinzel before the start of the regular season as well. And Rinzel, of course, is entering his first full season with the Blackhawks, joined on with the team after concluding his sophomore season with the Minnesota Golden Gophers and played in 9 games with the Blackhawks at the end of the 24-25 campaign, tallying 5 assists and perhaps even more impressively, averaging 23 minutes and 22 seconds of time on ice in a top pairing role immediately coming out of college. And he looked like he was ready to kind of handle that type of workload. Now, I do think altogether, Rinzel has strides to make in the defensive zone still to become like a comfortable top pairing defenseman, but offensively, with the way this kid moves, his offensive awareness, his playmaking skills, in addition to him gaining 15 pounds of muscle that he credited to drinking a ton of protein shakes over the summer, Sam Rinzel's a 6'4", 195-pound defenseman now, and I definitely think that's going to help him fare better in the defensive zone. And I also love to see that he didn't really lose any foot speed by adding on all that weight in the offseason. He looks just as fast as he did last season, and kind of in a similar mold to Frank Nazar. Sam Rinzel is just going to be getting a ton of opportunities here with the Blackhawks this season, and I would not be surprised whatsoever if he makes the most of it and has kind of a breakout type of campaign that gets everyone outside of Chicago understanding like, whoa, this kid might have some serious skills that we need to look out for in the future. And it looks like, Rinzel is going to be getting that opportunity on the top pairing for the Blackhawks right from the jump. Now, I would definitely feel more comfortable about him opening up the year if he didn't have Matt Grzelcyk alongside him, if he was with his natural defensive partner, Alex Vlasic. Hopefully Vlasic will be able to go in the Blackhawks' second game of the season on Thursday against the Florida Panthers. But still, Sam Rinzel going to be getting the opportunities for the Blackhawks on the blue line. A young blue line as a whole where, I think the inexperience, as I kind of talked about in a couple of previous shows, I more so think is going to impact the team negatively on the defensive side of things. And listen, I'm sure there will be, from the blue liners, sloppy passes in the O-zone, bad turnovers, whatever it may be from time to time, right? That's just kind of the things you get with the amount of inexperience that the Blackhawks have. And I believe, 6 of the 8 defensemen on the roster to start the year are 24 years old or younger, and the only 2 that are 24 are Alex Vlasic and Louis Crevier, right? Artem Levshinov still 19, Sam Rinzel still 21, Wyatt Kaiser still only 22 years old himself. So it's a very young and inexperienced group, but I really do think altogether this Blackhawks blue line is going to be more capable on the offensive side of things than we've seen from a lot of Blackhawks decors in years past. And Sam Rinzel is going to be at the absolute charge of that. So super excited to see how Sammy Rinzel is going to fare in his first full season. Didn't really have a huge sample size for him to go off of last year, but as I mentioned, tallied 5 assists in his first 9 NHL games. In terms of what I think Rinzel is going to produce point-wise here in the 25-26 season on an 82-game pace, it's kind of difficult because you don't want to set the expectations too high. You don't want to, lowball him too much, and then he goes and absolutely shatters those numbers. But I think a fair prediction of what Rinzel is going to put up this year in an 82-game pace, I have him scoring 6 goals and registering 39 assists for 45 points. 2 of those 6 goals, I believe, are going to come on the man advantage. And listen, with the opportunities he's going to get, there's definitely the potential for him to rack up more than that, in addition to him having 17 power play assists. But I think 45 points in 82 games would be a phenomenal start to Sam Rinzel's career. And as I've talked about a couple of different times on the show as well, I do believe Sam Rinzel is going to get the opportunity to really put himself into the Calder Trophy race here this season. I just actually went and looked at FanDuel's odds here this morning, down from 50-1, probably about a month ago now, all the way to 30-1. So clearly there's some people out there, and I've mentioned on the show as well, a couple of different people throwing Rinzel in the, top 5 or top 10 rookies to watch list entering the start of the season. Seems like there's some people on the scene who are understanding, again, the opportunity that he has in front of him. Top pairing defenseman, top power play unit quarterback, potentially even playing on the Blackhawks penalty kill as well. He's just going to be given so much of an opportunity here this year. And I really do think with just the increase in the Blackhawks overall speed, in addition to another year for Connor Bedard, in addition to another year for Frank Nazar, all of that is going to culminate into the Blackhawks power play being more dangerous this year, and then the Blackhawks offense as a whole just being more dangerous. And that's why I do think, as I'll get into, I spoiled some of them in my Chicago Hockey Now bold predictions article that I dropped yesterday, but I think it's going to be a good year for Tyler Bertuzzi. Obviously, I think the world of Frank Nazar. I'm predicting that Connor Bedard is going to have his best year in the NHL yet. And the reason I'm having these type of predictions is, again, just because of the increase in speed, also the youth movement being on full display, and just the Blackhawks having a more capable roster here this season. And I think Sam Rinzel is a prime example of that. So altogether, I'm going 6 goals, 39 assists, 45 points for Sam Rinzel in his rookie NHL campaign. Let me know in the comment section below, Blackhawks fans. Is that too high? Is that too low? Is that right on? And give me your prediction at what Sam Rinzel is going to produce here in his first full season with the Chicago Blackhawks. But that's going to take care of Sam Rinzel's 25-26 season preview. Coming up in just a moment here, Hawks fans, before I close things out, still want to get into a handful of bold predictions. But first, I also got to talk to you all about Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone like yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Well, it's easy. Just use Indeed, because when it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites, because Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. They make sure that your post is seen by the right candidates right now. So skip all of those unnecessary questions and steps, because now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and make sure to support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Just want to say thank you real quick to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your day. And for your second listen, make sure to go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where there is no offseason, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. And you can easily find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. Segment 3, it's time to get into my Blackhawks bold predictions segment that I do every year leading into the beginning of the regular season. As I referenced a moment ago, I did share some of these in a post that I had for Chicago Hockey Now. Make sure to go and check out Chicago Hockey Now if you haven't done so already for all my latest Blackhawks articles. So there might be a couple of repeats in here if you already checked out that column, but I did save some in particular for the show here today. First and foremost, Connor Bedard, his first 80-point campaign. I don't know if this is a bold prediction here, and it's also one that I obviously shared when I went through Bedard's season preview on the show a couple of days ago, but definitely wanted to bring it up here again. I believe it's going to be Bedard's first 30-goal, first 80-point campaign in the NHL. I'm projecting him to have 32 goals to lead the Blackhawks here this season, as well as 81 points. That's also going to be the best on the team for the third consecutive year. It's going to be the best season of his short career so far for number 98. Another bold prediction is that the Blackhawks finish top 5 in the NHL in shorthanded goals. And the reason I'm going this route is because while Vlasic has mentioned it's going to take, some time, doesn't really expect it to happen till like November for his team to fully grasp the aggressive penalty kill system that he's implemented here. However, I do think because of that aggressiveness, in addition to the amount of speed that the Blackhawks will have on the penalty kill unit with Frank Nazar and Ilya Mikheyev and Teuvo Teravainen, Sam Lafferty is a guy who provides some good wheels, and we know in his first stint with the Blackhawks, he generates a ton of breakaway opportunities himself, just kind of struggles to finish them. But the Blackhawks are going to have tons of speed while shorthand. Ryan Greene is a competent penalty killer with some decent wheels. Whenever Oliver Moore comes up to the NHL, he's obviously going to be part of the penalty kill and can absolutely fly. So combine that speed along with the Blackhawks' aggressive penalty kill mentality, and I think they're going to be top 5 in the NHL in shorthanded goals this year. And I also believe this because Blashill's Tampa Bay Lightning last year were 3rd in the NHL in shorties, and the Blackhawks didn't fare too badly in that category themselves, as they were 14th in the NHL with 6 shorthanded goals. And with Frank Nazar now being a full-time NHLer, in addition to the things that I just outlined, I really do believe the Blackhawks, while they could struggle to kill off penalties in the early going, I think they're going to be generating a decent amount of shorthanded odd man rushes and breakaway attempts for themselves right from the jump. So I think the Blackhawks, bold prediction here for sure, are going to be top 5 in the NHL in shorthanded goals this season. Number 3, one I kind of hinted at a little bit earlier, I think Tyler Bertuzzi is going to put up 50 points for the second time in his NHL career. And I just think his familiarity with Jeff Blashill, who he had a 30-goal, 60-point campaign under for the Detroit Red Wings, in addition to like the added intensity on Bertuzzi behind him getting off to a faster start here this season, as he's been a notorious slow starter throughout his career. Blashill is aware of that. He mentioned as much when speaking with the media not all that long ago. And then combine that with Frank Nazar, obviously his speed and the amount of opportunities he's going to generate for himself and for Bertuzzi as well. I just think Tyler Bertuzzi is in a really good spot. And also last year for the Blackhawks, despite never really being put on the top line with Bedard like I expected, kind of having an up and down season, he still wound up producing 23 goals and 23 assists for 46 points. So I think it's going to be a 27 or 28 goal year out of Tyler Bertuzzi, and he's going to net 50 points for the second time in his career and for the first time as a member of the Blackhawks. Another bold prediction that I have, one that I did mention in my article for Chicago Hockey Now, I think Frank Nazar is going to crack Team USA, and I know it is going to be very challenging for him to do so, considering how competitive the roster is on the forward side of things. And I believe in like mid to late July, right around USA's camp, I predicted the United States roster, and I didn't have Frank Nazar on it. However, I did mention that out of he, Connor Bedard, and Alex Vlasic, who are trying to make Olympic rosters, I think Frank Nazar has the best opportunity, not only because of how well he played to help the United States win its first gold medal since 1933 in the World Championships, was their leading point scorer in that tournament with 12 points in 10 games. But I also do think while he is undersized, and that's definitely going to hurt his chances, I do think Nazar plays a game that the USA would like to have in their bottom six, that well-rounded ability, a guy who can provide you with a little bit of everything. And despite being undersized, isn't scared to get into the dirty areas. He's responsible defensively. He can play in all situations. And he did just have 4 goals in 2 games against the Minnesota Wild in the preseason, a team that he's fared really well against in his young NHL career. And who's the general manager of Team USA? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's Minnesota Wild general manager Bill Guerin. So he's obviously familiar with what Frank Nazar brings to the table. And I just think his unique makeup, as well as how poorly the United States fared on the fourth line in the Four Nations faceoff, I do think there's an opportunity for Frank Nazar if he gets off to a real strong start this season, which I feel like he could based on how he fared during the preseason. I think Frank Nazar has, again, the best chance of any Blackhawk who is not yet on an Olympic roster to go and wind up cracking the Olympic spot. It's going to take a strong push from Nazar right out of the jump, but I think he's going to be able to do it. My next bold prediction that I have here: Jason Dickinson, Ilya Mikheyev, Connor Murphy, and Sam Lafferty, all expiring contracts, final year of their current deals. They're all going to be dealt by the Blackhawks at the deadline because they have guys like Sasha Boisvert, who's going to be ready to sign, in addition to maybe someone like Anton Frondel or Roman Kanserov, depending on where their seasons end, plus Oliver Moore, maybe Nick Lardis coming up to the NHL at the end of the season. They want to be clearing out some forward spots to give these guys an opportunity. And, of course, with where the Blackhawks are at in their rebuild, they're probably not going to be bringing back any of those 4 guys. The only one who I could potentially see is maybe Ilya Mikheyev because of his speed, but I do still think all 4 of those players are going to end up getting traded, while Nick Foligno, who is a UFA at the end of the season as well, I think he's actually going to remain on with the Blackhawks, and I'm predicting that Foligno signs a 1-year contract either in the spring or in the summer to remain as the Hawks captain through the 26-27 season before likely passing the torch down to Connor Bedard. My next bold prediction that I have for the Blackhawks this year: Oliver Moore plays in 50 NHL games, very similar to what we saw happen with Frank Nazar last year. And I don't think Oliver Moore is going to light up the AHL offensively the way we saw Frank Nazar do before getting his NHL call-up, but I do still feel like he's going to have a really strong start to the season with Rockford, and I just think the way that he flies out there, his speed will help this Blackhawks bottom six get better right now, even if the Hawks front office wants to keep him in a larger role early on in the season. I think because of the impact that he's going to play with that speed for the Ice Hogs, I think that's really going to force the front office and the coaching staff's hands to get him up in the NHL. So I'm predicting 50 games played with the Blackhawks this year out of Oliver Moore. And then on the flip side of that, I'm predicting that Kevin Korchinski is going to play in less than 5 NHL games with the Blackhawks this season. And I think this is a combination of where Korchinski's still at in his development, in addition to all the left-handed defensemen that the Blackhawks have right now. I just think it's going to be a tough path for Korchinski to get a call-up, and the only way it's probably going to happen this season is A, if the Blackhawks are dealing with injuries on the left side, or B, if Korchinski is absolutely lighting it up in the AHL. But I'm projecting fewer than 5 games for KK here this season. Next bold prediction: Sasha Boisvert, in a very similar path that I had with Ryan Greene last year in my bold predictions. I have Sasha Boisvert making his NHL debut and scoring his first NHL goal before the 25-26 season comes to a close. Sasha's off to a really good start to his first season with Boston University, scored a goal and had 2 assists in his first appearance with the Terriers, and I believe he's going to have a monster year with BU and then sign his entry-level contract with Chicago whenever his sophomore campaign in college comes to a close. Very excited for Sasha Boisvert. Then I have Wyatt Kaiser leading all Blackhawks defensemen in even strength goals here this season. I know Sam Rinzel, Artie Levshinov, they're going to be seemingly getting the keys to quarterback the Blackhawks 2 power play units. Doesn't look like Wyatt Kaiser is going to be playing much on the man advantage, at least right out of the gate. But I do think what we saw from Kaiser late last season and just the aggressiveness that he plays with and how he jumps up into the play, scored 3 goals in his final 19 games last season. I think he could lead the Blackhawks blue line in even strength goals here this season. That's my 9th bold prediction for the Blackhawks this year. And then last but certainly not least, I feel like I had to go with something regarding Laurent Brossoit because I kind of threw the hex on him at the start of last year, I guess you could say. I'm projecting very bold prediction, maybe my boldest one yet, that Laurent Brossoit plays in at least one game for the Chicago Blackhawks this season. We did hear from GM KD at the start of camp that this is not a career-threatening injury, he believes, for Brossoit. Obviously, we have seen him. I don't even know if we've seen him once since he signed a 2-year deal with the Blackhawks in the summer of 2024. But I'm predicting we see one game out of Laurent Brossoit this season, either in the NHL or in the AHL. That's going to take care of today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Make sure to check me out on X. I'll be live tweeting each and every Blackhawks game throughout the 82 contest campaign. And go and follow at Talkin' Hockey as well, my strictly Blackhawks account, so you don't miss out on any of the latest Blackhawks news or updates. Until tomorrow's episode, everyone, go Blackhawks. Drop your predictions down below in the comment section. And also, let me know what's your bold prediction for the 25-26 campaign. Until the next episode, go Hawks. Everyone enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.